The North York Moors is a vast upland area with a unique geography. To the east, it's surrounded by the North Sea. To the north and to the west, huge escarpment edges drop down to the plains of York and Cleveland. To the south, where we're starting, there was once a huge glacial freshwater lake bounded by flat-top limestone hills that give way to the higher gritstone moors. We're starting at Hutton le Hole, just a few miles from Kirkbymoorside, and then following a circular route, going up to a little visited Farndale, and then over the top to Rosedale, which was once a huge ironstone mining centre and now returned to farmland. So, let's visit the heart of the North York Moors. The North York Moors covers an area of 550 square miles, or 1,425 square kilometres, and is all a national park. We're starting at the southern edge of the moors, which is bounded by the A170 that runs from Helmsley to Scarborough. The turning to Hutton le Hole is just over a mile, or 1.6 kilometres east of Kirkbymoorside, or, if you're coming from the Pickering side, about 5 miles or 8 kilometres. The main road was once the edge of a glacial lake that ran from Helmsley to the coast, was bounded by the flat-top Tabular Hills. We're passing through these for 2.5 miles or 4 kilometres to reach Hutton le Hole. From the main road, we're first passing through the modern housing developments of Keldholme before reaching open countryside. Hutton le Hole was originally just called Houghton in the Domesday Book of 1086, when there were 8 families living here. But with increased travel in Victorian times, the Le Hole was added to differentiate it from other places called Hutton in Yorkshire. The valley leading to Hutton lies between 2 low flat-top limestone hills. These are part of the Tabular Hills that border the much higher North York Moors. Hutton Beck runs through the village and rises in the moors beyond, and joins the River Rye the other side of the main road from which we had just turned up. The road through the village runs up the east side, and the local access road to the other side, Back Lane, runs up the west side and rejoins the main road at the top of the village. It's always been a small agricultural village, and most of the properties date from the 18th and 19th centuries. The idyllic village became very popular with visitors, with the rise in the number of cars in the 1920s. On the right, hidden by trees, is the village church. It's a modern one, St Chad's, and built in 1934, using stone from cottages at Banktop Mine above Rosedale Abbey, seen at the very end of this film. The parish church was at Lastingham and was founded in 654 AD by St Chad, hence its dedication. Although the rural way of life still continues on the farms in the area, behind 2 cafes facing the street, new businesses have sprung up in the workshops, where you can find a chocolatier's, a craft gallery and suppliers of home furnishings. In medieval times, it was under the jurisdiction of the Lord of the Manor, who controlled the area with a court. Surprisingly, this court still exists today, and Hutton comes under the court leet of the village of Spaunton, 2 miles or 3 kilometres to the east. This leet, the local court, is one of only 16 left in Britain. It looks after the common land, including the rental of the sheep grazing rights on the green. The odd-looking building in the middle of the green by the beck was built as a school in 1845 and is now a house. As we'll see soon, it was replaced by a new school. Many people head for Hutton to the Rosedale Folk Museum that covers 6 acres and was founded in the 1950s. Here has been erected buildings that otherwise might have been demolished, and the museum also records the rural way of life. Probably not a surprise that there's a pub in the village, the Crown, but it's quite modern. It was built in 1940 on the site of an earlier building. The new school on the other side of the road was built in 1875. It closed in 1972 and is now a cafe. What looks like a sign on the top exterior wall is a Merrill's board. It's a Roman strategy game, sometimes known as Nine Men's Morris. A World Merrill's Championship was held here until 1997. The road right leads to the village car park and also to Lastingham and to Rosedale Abbey. We come down this to complete the circuit, but we're heading towards Farndale. The road climbs out of Hutton le Hole onto Blakey Ridge. This is the watershed between Farndale and Rosedale. There's a turning left down into Farndale. It's quite a long way down on a narrow road with glimpses of a full valley. The valley is about 11 miles, 18 kilometres long, and there are only 2 villages on it, Low Mill and Church Houses. However, we're lucky to see the valley at all. In both the 1930s and again in the 1960s, there were plans to flood the valley for a reservoir. The way of life has hardly changed around here. It's largely sheep farming and has a population of around 200. The road drops down the valley side to a junction. You can continue ahead to Church Houses, about 4 miles or 6.5 kilometres away, or turn left, crossing the infant River Dove to a hamlet called Low Mill. Although there's really no facilities at Low Mill, it still retains a popular brass band that has its own rehearsal room, which doubles as a concert hall. It seats just 100. It has been called the greatest small venue on earth. Come here in late March and into April and you'll hardly be able to move. People come here to see the wild daffodils, said to have been planted by the monks of Rosedale Abbey, 20 miles or 32 kilometres away. They grow alongside the bank of the River Dove and attract 40,000 visitors in those few short weeks that they flower. People usually walk the 3.5 miles or 5.6 kilometres from Low Mill to Church Houses, but bring Wellington boots. It can get very muddy with all these walkers. The River Dove rises at the top of Farndale and flows 19 miles or 30 kilometres to join the River Rye. The weather can change very quickly up here. This was filmed when it was snowing in April. At High Mill is a Daffy Cafe that is open daily during this period, or from Friday to Sunday until the end of September. The lane from the cafe comes from the right, where there's the Faversham Arms. This is named after the lord of the manor, the Earls of Faversham. The family name is actually Duncombe, and they still live at Duncombe Park at Helmsley. The unmarked tiny road at left is the one that is needed to be taken out of the valley to Rosedale, but just a bit further on is the church that gives the village its name. We're now on the same road that has come up the east side of the valley. Although the church St Mary's looks old, it only dates from 1831, and between 1907 and 1914 was restored by Temple Moore, a well-known local architect to the Earls of Faversham, who also lived in Helmsley. Let's now leave Farndale by climbing that steep road out of the valley. Halfway up, there's a small car park where there are superb views. On the skyline at the top of the valley used to run a railway taking ironstone from the adjacent valley of Rosedale. From up here it went down a steep escarpment, so steep that the wagons had to be winched down and coal was brought back up. The iron ore then went to the blast furnaces at Teesside or Durham. The road from Farndale comes back onto Blakey Ridge and then hugs round the top of Rosedale to a junction where there are 3 waymarkers: Old Ralph, Young Ralph and Fat Betty. It's hard going for these cyclists up here. Blakey Ridge is 1,325 foot above sea level and invariably very windy. By the side of the road you'll notice many stone markers. Some of these date back to the Bronze Age, 4,000 years ago. They stand on top of burial mounds, locally called howls. There are hundreds of them on the moor tops. The Lion Inn has stood here since the 16th century. It must have been a welcome sight for visitors who travelled these lonely moors. Adjacent to it is another burial mound that also has a boundary marker. The initial TDs stand for Thomas Duncombe. Across the road from the pub, on either side of the house, are paths down into Rosedale. It seems unbelievable to us today that the whole valley was ravaged by ironstone mines right up until the 1920s. The paths run down to the former railway line. The brick building below is a former water tank. The line ran for 11 miles or 18 kilometres on both sides of the valley and was completed in 1861. The railway bed is now a bridleway, meaning that walkers, cyclists and horse riders can enjoy the track around the dale and see some of the former mines. There were branches off leading to various mines at different levels. The line came up an incline and crossed Blakey Ridge close to the Lion Inn and then went to the top of Farndale. Back on the road that skirts the head of Rosedale and just a little past the road down to Rosedale Abbey, you'll find Ralph Cross. It stands at a junction of roads that leads to Westerdale, the Esk Valley, and on a clear day you can see Whitby. The cross stands around 12 feet or 3.7 metres high and is probably 15th century and acted as a waymarker for people crossing these moors. It's well known today as a symbol for the North York Moors National Park. It's actually called Young Ralph, as there's an even older cross that's only 5 feet or 1.5 metres high, lies 200 metres away to the northwest. We're now returning to the junction at the head of the dale. The road here runs for about 4 miles, dropping down from the top of the valley to Rosedale East. At the junction there's a car park with a bird's eye view of the dale. In the trees below is the River Severn. This too joins the River Rye, 15 miles or 24 kilometres away. The rocks here were laid down in the Jurassic period, between 200 and 150 million years ago, when dinosaurs roamed a shallow tropical sea here. Then around 30 million years ago, the whole area was lifted and tilted to the south, the way we are looking, and as recently as 10,000 years ago, the valleys were carved out by glaciers. The weather can change quickly up here. This film is around 30 minutes later, after filming and photographing the Ralph crosses. We're now looking for Fat Betty. You can just see her over there to the left. But it's only the bottom section of a cross shaft with its wheelhead top. It would have been as tall as Young Ralph, painted white to give the profile of a lady wearing a skirt. On top you might find money and food for those lost on the moor. The weather's clearing now, and it's a long drop down the side of a valley, which is unseen to the right. Eventually you come across a turning to the right, signposted Rosedale East only. The community developed up here after the mine, which we're now going to see, opened in 1864, and cottages were built up here. To access the rail path, the footpath is opposite the village memorial hall to those who died in World War I. These are called School Row. Besides the school, there was also a hospital here for industrial accidents. Further along are more houses called hill cottages. With the mines in full production, the population of the whole dale increased from 446 in 1861 to 2,048 in 1871, and 10 years later was almost 3,000. Today it's around 500. This was the former Primitive Methodist Chapel of 1872 and is now an outdoor education centre. Now above us is the vast East Mine complex. This old photograph shows how badly scarred the valley was by the mining operation. What remains today are the kilns in which the iron ore was burned, which removed impurities and rock. Coal was brought in by rail and the pure ore exported. The mine eventually reached 3 miles into the hillside, and pit ponies hauled the wagons of it out. At its peak, around 1870, 300,000 tonnes was quarried, but it quickly fell to 25,000 tonnes less than a decade later, and led to the closure of the mine between 1879 and 1882. It reopened and finally closed in 1926. We now drop down to Rosedale Abbey and climb up the steepest road in Britain, called the Chimney Bank, to the kilns at Bank Top, from which the road returns to Hutton le Hole. Although the village is called Rosedale Abbey, it was in fact a small Cistercian priory, a nunnery. The church, St Mary, to the right on entering the village, is built of the ruins of the priory. The church dates from 1839. Above you on entering, you'll see the Priory's motto, Omnia Vanitas, all is vanity. Also inside is the Bishop's chair from the Priory and other stones. There's only a small part of the Priory still standing, and that is in the churchyard, the turret tower. The Priory was built in 1154 and was founded by William of Rosedale. The school behind, built in 1822, stands on the cloister of the Priory. Back on the road and opposite the churchyard is a former primitive Methodist chapel of 1871 that was converted into a house in 1949. Almost all the village is Victorian, and the houses were built for the mine managers. It surprisingly has a lot of facilities, as it has remained popular with visitors, and there's plenty of visitor accommodation as well as camping and caravan sites. It still remains a farming community, and an annual agricultural show is held in mid-August and has done so since 1871. We're going to turn right here and circle around the village and come back to this point. The school and church are at left. Around the triangle green is a tea room and gallery, and the Abbey store and tea room. Miners weren't paid in cash. Instead they were paid in credit notes, which they could use to pay for goods at the shops here. Unsurprisingly, the shops were owned by the mining company, who were also able to charge a premium for the goods. Ahead is the Milburn Arms, a country house hotel. Back at the right turn again, we're going to branch left this time, but a bit further on the main road is the Coach House Inn, and the road goes to Lastingham and Hutton le Hole on a much easier gradient. Here there's another pub with rooms, the 16th century White House Farm Inn. This part of Chimney Bank is the steepest road in Britain, which it shares with Hartnott Pass in the Lake District. It climbs 568 feet or 173 metres in less than a mile and is 1 in 3. It also has a number of blind bends. The road got its name from the 100-foot or 30-metre high chimney that stood on the top, but that was demolished in 1972. At the top is a car park and information boards about the mine that closed in 1929. Ironstone was discovered up here in 1853 and the mine opened in 1856. Like Rosedale East mine, what you're seeing are the roasting kilns, as the miners called them. Before the railway came to this mine, the iron ore was taken down a steep incline to the road far below, and then taken by cart to the railway station at Pickering, 10 miles or 16 kilometres away, which had opened in 1836. The railway was built to the top of the kilns in 1861, and it was at the end of a line on the west side of the valley. Again, the mid to late 1860s was a golden period for the mine, with 250,000 tonnes being mined a year. You can see the former miners' cottages up here. There are only 4 today of the 16 that stood here. As we've seen, stone from the demolished ones was used to build a church at Hutton le Hole. The road from here crosses Staunton Moor and returns to Hutton le Hole 3 miles or 5 kilometres away. The sandy track at left leads to another waymarker called Ain Howe or Anna Cross. The original is in the crypt at Lastingham Church, but that's another story. There are other places to visit nearby, such as Lastingham, Castleton and Pickering. At Pickering you can catch the steam train the 24 miles to Whitby. Whitby stands at the mouth of the River Esk. The River Esk rises at the watershed between Rosedale and Westerdale. We rely upon local organisations to help us with our films, so if you can help in any way, please contact us. We're always posting new films as well, so please subscribe to keep up to date with what we are posting on our channel. But thank you for watching and look forward to seeing you again soon.